Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome to another podcast. Today I have a special guest with me, the Vice President of the Florida Education Association, Mr. Andrew Spar. Andrew, thank you so much for coming out. Love having you here. Andrew, I just wanted to ask you a few questions that people are always approaching me about, and I was hoping that you'd be kind enough to answer for us.
Absolutely.
So the first one is that for the past 20 years, public education has been under attack, sustained and constant attack from the people whose duty it is, their primary duty is to provide our state with a free, uniformed, high-quality public education system. What is our plan at FEA to right this ship?
So you bring up a good point. What we've been saying now at FEA is that we've had decades of bad policy and a disinvestment in our public schools. When you account for inflation, our public schools actually get less money today than they did before the recession started over 12 years ago. And when you look at policy, we've had bad policy after bad policy after bad policy. Policies around teacher pay, policies around continuing contracts and annual contract status, bonus scheme after bonus scheme after bonus scheme. So what we're saying now is it's time for a decade of progress. And for us, that decade of progress means we want to see a real investment in our public schools. We think Florida should aim to be in the top 10 in the nation. And one way to do that, one way to go to the top 10 in the nation is to invest $22 billion over the next 10 years. That literally doubles what we spend right now in education and will move us to number 9 in the nation, all things being equal. It will also allow us to move teacher salaries to top 10 in the nation, our education staff professional salaries to the top 10 in the nation, and it will allow us to restore many of the cuts we've seen in music, art, physical education, guidance counselors, social workers, and school psychologists. So many of the services we hear talked about all the time, but there hasn't really been an investment to do that. That's what we see as the future for education in the state of Florida, and that's what we're going to be fighting for. Starting this legislative session in 2020, to start this decade, we're asking lawmakers to invest $2.4 billion into our public schools. That will allow for 10% across the board raises. We also want to see changes in the policy around salaries. We want to see work done to actually move the agenda in regards to continuing contracts and annual contract status, to add some job security, right? We see people walking out left and right, and they're walking out because they don't have the job security that they need. And then finally, we're also looking at our students too, right? And so one of the things you hear all the time is parental choice. Nothing can be more powerful than giving parents the right to have their students opt out of testing. And so that's another thing we're going to be looking at. Let's allow parents to opt their kids out of these high stakes tests, and let's start talking about why we continue to put so much weight on a VAM score, which is this hidden formula that no one understands and no one else can replicate, but yet the state of Florida continues to rely on.
Wow. So he said VAM, huh? Come on, that's just terrible. Andrew, you were really good at this. I'm so happy you're here today. So, what goes through your mind when you hear lawmakers, usually those that want to be reelected, start talking about things like paying teachers $50,000?
Look, we have to realize that right now in the state of Florida, more than half the teachers do not even make $50,000 right now. And so could you imagine in some districts where you have to have 10, 15, 20 years in to hit the 50,000 mark, if all of a sudden they said everyone's going to make 50,000 who's below 50,000. So you're just getting there after 15 years, and you look behind and someone coming in is just getting to that 50,000 mark. So there's a whole host of issues with that, right? What we should be talking about is how we raise everyone's pay. There are literally teachers in this state, maybe even here in Pinellas, I don't know. But there are certainly thousands of teachers in the state of Florida who are making less money today in real dollars than their counterparts did 10, 15 years ago. That's wrong. And it's because of these bad policies. So let's talk about bringing everyone's pay up. Let's talk about making sure that everyone gets big pay increases and that we do it in a fair and equitable way. Too often we see this thing where people who've been in the district for a while are actually getting smaller raises than people who are coming in or have only been here for a few years. And when you want to keep people in the profession, which is something we should absolutely want to do, experience does matter. And so we should want to keep people in the profession. We should be investing in such a way that everyone's pay is going up. And we've got to stop, you didn't ask there, but I think we also need to talk about is bonus schemes. We've had a ton of them here in the state of Florida, at least 5, 6, 7 of them over the last couple of decades. And in those bonus schemes, what we find is it's just a way to get out of paying real salaries to the people who work in our schools.
So I have one other question for you. Here in Florida, we don't have the right to strike, but even if we had that right, a strike wouldn't be very successful if so many educators are not part of their union. So do you think there is a financial cost to educators, to all the union members, that we all have to bear for not having membership density, like, for example, the police have or the firefighters?
Yeah, look, our power is each other, right? The union is you. It is you, it is me, it is every single member out there. That's who the union is. We are fortunate to serve in positions where we're representing our members and helping amplify that voice. But the real power does not reside with you, Mike, or with me. It resides with every single member out there. And when we come together and when we stand in unity, there's nothing we can't do. And so that's why, actually, right now, FEA, with the support of you and local leaders all over the state, we're coordinating a bus tour. Right after the delegate assembly in the middle of October, we are going to start in Escambia County, up in Pensacola. We are going to come all the way around the state, including through here in Pinellas County, all the way to the Keys, and then all the way back up the East Coast. And we are going to talk about what should be happening in public education. We're going to meet with members. We're going to meet with community leaders. We're going to meet with business community members. We're going to meet with faith leaders. We're going to meet with parents and students, high school students, college students, because we want everyone to be part of the conversation on what we should be doing in public education. We want to fight forward, not just defend everything that's gone on. We want to fight forward for public schools and make sure we get that real investment. So that bus tour is going to spark it out. And I want everyone to mark on their calendar right now, January 13th. January 13th is the day before the legislative session starts. We're going to be calling on everyone. We want that to be a day of action. We want that to be a day when we show lawmakers that it's time to pay attention to our public schools and that we mean business. And the kinds of things that we've seen happen in West Virginia and Oklahoma and Arizona and LA and all these other places across the country where teachers have said enough is enough, that's what we got to do here in Florida. And just so you know, West Virginia, they can't strike in West Virginia either. What happened there is enough teachers said they were going to get involved and engage and go to their capital that the school district shut down their schools. So they really weren't technically on strike, that the schools were technically closed and the teachers were up in Tallahassee.
So the administration was supporting them.
Yeah, so they were. And I'm not saying that's something we can or should do here, but it's certainly something we need to be looking at in terms of how do we move an agenda and make sure that the lawmakers and that the parents and the community understand the importance of public education and get behind us and support us.
Well, Andrew, I want to thank you again for coming.
Absolutely.
And I want to personally, from me and from the members of PCTA, PESPA, our peer members, I just want to thank you. I want to thank Fed. I want to thank Carol for the great work that you're doing up at FEA. We're behind you 100%. And you call on us and we'll be there. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, Mike. Appreciate
Oh, by the way, guys, come on, look at it. Take care,
everyone.